Okay, now that you know the parts of a parabola, we're going to work on actually graphing them. And the first one being is graphing from factored form. So the first equation that we have is f of x equals 1/2 times x plus 2 times x minus 6. So remember that f of x is the same thing as like a y equals. It's just a different notation. It's function notation. So we can do several things with this graph. First of all, I can already tell which direction my parabola is going to open. I know it's going to open up because whatever is outside the parentheses is positive, even if there's nothing there. If there's nothing there, it's implied that there's a positive 1 in front of those parentheses, which would tell us again that this is a positive parabola and that it would open up. So I can kind of give myself a mental check to go, when I get this graphed, make sure that it's facing up and not facing or opening down. Okay, after this, the first thing we can do is find our x-intercepts. Okay, we know how to find the solutions, which is also the x-intercepts as seen in previous videos. So if we're looking for solutions, we would be solving 1/2 times x plus 2 times x minus 6 equals 0. Again, for this 0 is your y. So that's why these solutions are our x-intercepts, because they're coordinate points that have a y value of 0. Okay, to solve this, you're using the zero product property. The 1/2 is just a greatest common factor. There's no x with it, so it's not going to give you a solution. So all we do is we set each of our parts equal to 0, and then we're going to solve each part. So I have x-intercepts at -2, and I have x-intercepts at +6. So then I plot those 2 points on my graph. Okay, now after this, the next point that I have to have on my graph is my vertex. I need to know what's the highest point or the lowest point or maximum and minimum of a parabola. Now, through the work we've been doing this week, you guys have noticed that, hey, the axis of symmetry is this line that cuts the parabola in half and also goes through the vertex, right? The vertex is kind of our halfway point between our two zeros or our two x-intercepts. So if you look at your two x-intercepts, you can either average the two values, or you can just look at the graph and say, okay, where is the middle of this? And if you count spaces from -2 to +6, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 places. So halfway in between there would be 4 from each direction. So 4 to the right of the -2 gives you +2, and 4 to the left of the 6 also gives you +2. So what that tells you is that your axis of symmetry is going to end up right here at x equals 2. So that is going to help us determine where is our vertex. Okay, for your vertex, you know the x value has to land on that axis of symmetry, which is x equals 2. So now you just have to find the y value. Well, if you know an x, you can find the y value by plugging it into your function. We know y equals 1/2 times, now replace all your x's with the 2 from your axis of symmetry. 2 plus 2 times 2 minus 6, and go through order of operations, and that's going to give you your y value. So we have 1/2 times 4 times -4, which is going to be 1/2 times -16, which is -8. So what that tells me is that my vertex is 2, -8. And again, the -8 came from plugging in the x value of 2. So now I can plot that point on my graph, and now I have 3 points I can draw my parabola. And I can do a quick mental check to say, hey, at the very beginning, I knew this was going to open up. Did it indeed open up with my graph? And yes, it does. Okay, so I'm going to do one more example. And that is this one here, number 2. So first thing we're going to notice is, hey, this number out here is negative. So what does that tell us about the parabola? That tells us that if that's negative, this is going to be a negative parabola, which means it's going to open down. So from here, first thing we do is find our x-intercepts. So we are solving negative 2 times x plus 8 times x plus 4 equals 0. The negative 2, again, is just a GCF, so it's not going to tell us a solution. So then we set each of these equal to 0, and we get x-intercepts at negative 8 and x-intercepts at negative 4. So we'll plot those on the graph. Okay, now we also know what our axis of symmetry is. Axis of symmetry is going to be the vertical line that gets right in between those two x-intercepts, which would be at negative 6. So there's my axis of symmetry. And what that helps me do is that helps me find my vertex. My vertex has to land on that axis of symmetry. So I know the x value this time is negative 6 because my axis of symmetry is x equals negative 6. Now I need to find the y value. So what I do is I take my x value and I plug it into the function. Y equals negative 2 times negative 6 plus 8 times negative 6 plus 4. So again, replacing all the x's with negative 6, and then go through and evaluate it. So we get 2 and negative 2, which gives me negative 2 times negative 4, which is positive 8. So up here for the vertex, the y value is 8. Because remember, this whole time, this is all y equals, or positive 8. So negative 6, positive 8 is my vertex. And now I am able to draw the parabola. And this one's facing down, which is good because at the very beginning we noticed, hey, that negative 2 out front means that this is a negative parabola.